Okay, all right, so welcome. So I'm super excited that we are joined by Shannon. And before we get going, just want to go over a few housekeeping items. These Tech Talks are recorded and posted to the YouTube, and we'll make the links available on the meetup page, which I'll probably know about because that's how everyone got here. The talks do have live captions that are available using Zoom's closed caption feature, which also makes some hilarious mistakes at times, which is always fun. And we encourage everyone to read our code of conduct, and as a Collab Lab event, we should all be abiding by the Collab Lab code of conduct. And if you see anything out of order, please let us know. And if you have the means to do so, please consider sponsoring the Collab Lab. Or if you are an early career engineer and want to be involved, please get involved. And also, if you are a later career engineer or anyone who's in the tech world, we're also always looking for mentors. So would also love to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to give control over to Shannon. And Shannon and I know we go way back to my days at Alchemy Code Lab, which was my boot camp. And Shannon helped to get me my very first job. So she has really great advice to give, and I'm super excited to hear what she has to say. Let's see. Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Shannon Rasimas, and I'm really excited to be here today. There's also a number of people in the Zoom room who I really wish I could give a big old hug to. And thank you so much for coming out tonight to listen to what I have to say. A couple things before I get going. I will not pay attention to the chat while I'm talking. It's really distracting for me. And so if anybody wants to ask a question in the chat, I'm going to put it in Mike's hands to maybe help that, or Andrew's. But honestly, I would love you to raise your hand, interrupt me. I can take the verbal interruptions. The chat interruptions are too much for me. And, I would love to hear from you as well. And there'll be times when I ask you questions as well. So with that being said, quick introduction. As Mike said, he knows me from Alchemy. I was the career development coach, director for over 3.5 years at Alchemy Code Lab. And I had the most beautiful, wonderful opportunity to help hundreds of people through the transition into their first tech role. I can't believe I can say that, but it's been a really incredible experience. And I am now a technical recruiter and working in education at Allocations, which is a fintech company that is fully remote. And actually, my partner in crime, Nell, works with me, and she's on this call as well today. And I thank her for coming as well. And hi, Mark, it's great to see you. Gosh, Mark and Mike have done so many mock interviews and helped so many students along with the way with me. They're both graduates from Alchemy. Mark even precedes my time at Alchemy. And Julie and Sarah and Gabriel and Casey and all of y'all from Alchemy. It's good to see you. And I know I'm missing a whole bunch of you all. Alan, I see you. Michael, there's so many of you. Thank you. So with that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, which one do I want? That one. All right. You can see this, my introduction. Fantastic. So as I mentioned, Yeah, I've helped hundreds of people in the career development stuff. I'm very, very passionate about this. And I didn't say this when I mentioned my name, but my pronouns are she, her. And it's probably pretty obvious, but I am a white woman and a cis straight woman with East Coast roots that is very direct. And I just want to say that because these are kind of like from my experiences. What I talk about today is going to be, collective things that I've learned. I've learned so much from working with people at Alchemy. And you need to think about the way that you show up in the world and choose a good path that's for you as well, in addition to that. Moving forward, I want to talk about you a little bit. I want, if there's one thing that I can really, really instill in you right now at this very, very moment as you're transitioning into tech, is to be you. I have seen so many people think that they had to morph into some sort of professional software engineer and what they think that that needs to look like. And you don't have to do that. I think that showing up authentically to the table, and I want to point out that I realize that not everybody always has the opportunity or the safety to show up authentically, which I wish they could. I want you to be able to tell your story as you. I don't care if you have tattoos or purple hair, or like one of my first grads that I worked with, she had mama bear tattooed across her fingers, and she was authentically herself. And she got one of the very first jobs that she worked in, and she was terrified that she just wasn't that software engineer looking person. But look in the mirror, you're all software developers or engineers or whatever title that you're working on. So please know that. Also, I want to put out there that I'm not for everyone and everyone isn't for me. And I mean that because some people stink out there. People are very unfortunate sometimes. They judge. I'm not sure how many of you have come from a boot camp, but I know that there's bias sometimes towards non-traditional education. Some interviewers and hiring managers are unfortunate and they might ghost you. You might get a job offer rescinded or lowballed on an offer or treated poorly or unfortunately. And it's absolutely horrible in the moment and it stinks, but move forward and find your community. Find the people who are going to accept you for who you are. They're out there. I also want to give a little bit of grace that sometimes I know that people are in a position where they really, really need a job and they need to work. But you always have to think about your journey and your path and what's best for you. So I now want to hear from all of you all. And, feel free to turn on your video if you want to, but what do you all think is the best way to land your first role? I want to hear from some of you out there. I won't call on anybody. Some of you know that I will at some point. I'm all ears. Let me hear from you.
Know somebody who works where you want to work and make friends with them.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I feel like the best thing you could do is to network, to make a friend, a reference, and network.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I love that. Anybody else want to say anything? You don't have to. No pressure. I can move forward.
Find some.
What's that, Ryan?
I was going to say maybe find some mentors to kind of help guide you through this process.
Yep. And I think somebody else might have been trying to talk.
I just said, you know what I'm going to say, Shannon, networking, and everybody's saying it. So that's good.
Absolutely. So here we are. We have all of these ways out here. There's hackathons, there's great portfolio sites and networking and referrals and internships. And I really, really wish that I can tell every single one of you that there was this direct path that you needed to take to your first job, and that was going to be what worked for you. But unfortunately, it's not that easy. If I could hand every single one of you a job, I would. But everybody is going to have a different experience, probably even if you interview at the same company. But these are things to keep in mind. So let's organize this a little bit and think about, really what works best for you. I kind of bucketed these a little bit so that, I tend to maybe encourage front end people to really brand your assets. And by assets, I mean, maybe get a portfolio site and, have it look the same as your resume and use the markdown page on GitHub and streamline all that and have a really strong presence that way. And, you might network and get a referral from a friend. If you're a back-end person and design's not your thing, maybe build a great API. It could be a fantastic conversation starter in an interview. I've heard great stories about that. Or if you're a generalist, maybe a combination of everything. But honestly, what combination works for you and excites you the most? Stay in your lane, own your thing. You don't have to do all the things. Do the things that work best for you. And another thing that I want to put out there is everyone has a freaking opinion on how things should be done, right? You probably have heard it. You probably get really confusing information surfing LinkedIn and hearing from different recruiters. Should I have a 1-page resume or a 2-page resume, or should I do this or should I do that? I'm going to use a quick example here. So client, I need to update my resume. And the person says, okay, you're not getting interviews? No, I'm getting lots of interest from companies, but a couple people thought I should change it. I ask why. They thought it needed to be simpler. So you have companies who want you, you're getting interviews due to your current resume, but you should change it because a few people said so. Silence. If you weren't getting interviews, maybe revise your resume, but you are, so your resume is probably not the issue. Don't let a few people's problems with you become your made up problem with you. Let's talk about your direction instead. And take a deep breath and really think about where your bottlenecks are instead of being reactive. And gosh, I can't stand that sometimes. Like, where is that person coming from? Like, what is their experience? What have they done that has that opinion? And I can't see your names for some reason, but I see people shaking their head that they've probably had this experience before. But, think about where your actual bottlenecks are before you do that. Change things. Don't drastically be reactive. So we're going to go into a little bit of key about you principles. Things that I really want you to take away, aside from some of these important housekeeping things that I provided right here. Who doesn't know this already? Your first role in tech is likely your hardest to secure, right? The hardest one. This is like where you really got to put the effort into it and maybe put it all out there, drain your tank, always try to refill your tank. But once you get your foot in the door, you're likely going to have a really good upward career path. Never forget why you did this, why you decided to learn whatever you learned how to do. I'm going to say code as a general thing, but let that fuel you forward. I have a question for you all. For those of you on camera, raise your hand if you think that you're an extrovert. Nobody? I got 1, 2, 3. And oh, I'm sorry. I can't. Why are the names not hovering over? The gentleman who has your hand raised, you don't still have a question, do you? Oh, and you're just raising your hands now. All right. And who's introverted? Wow, there's far more of you than I thought. And this field tends to attract a little bit more of the introverted people. And, the reason why I asked this question is because I tend to be a little bit more of the extroverted type person. But introverts sometimes have a harder time putting themselves out there and making connections and interviewing. And did you all take a chance by learning how to code and changing directions with your career? You learn this new thing. Has anybody ever put some money into some sort of like cryptocurrency or gambled a few dollars on something, knowing that you might never get it back? Yeah, I see those heads shaking. So why not take a chance on yourself and put yourself out there and say something to somebody? And I take this lesson away from a pretty introverted senior engineering manager who it just says I really admire this person, and I want to like hang on every single word she said. And she had said this to me, and it just makes so much sense. It's really hard. And some of you all hide behind your code and you're coding all the time, that you lose sight of like putting yourself out there to get the job. So think about that for a second and what that looks like. And those of you at Alchemy from Alchemy are gonna know this for the most part, but I truly, truly strongly believe this, but move forward with imperfect action. I see people finish their coding boot camp or whatever training that they do, and they're either stuck by fear, or they feel that they have to be perfect in some way, or refactor everything in their GitHub profile, brush up every project they did. And you are great just the way that you are. While I do think that you need to work on your interview skills and have a great resume and work on doing things well, you can continue to move forward. You might fail, you might get told no, you might have a disastrous interview, but you did it. You put yourself out there and you learn from it, right? And you figure out maybe where you didn't do so well, and you figure out how you can do it a little bit better, and you put yourself out there again. You hold on to why you're doing this, and you keep moving forward. Make sense to y'all? All right. And Mark might know the person who told me this, but I had an Alchemy grad who finished probably around Mark's time come in and talk. It was Chris Bruner, Mark. And he gave a talk to some Alchemy people. And I love what he has to say. And he had said, you are all the captain of your own ship. And he would literally sit up there and say, just because you did the thing doesn't mean you get the thing, right? It's really, really up to you to nurture your code. You put the effort into the jobs that you apply. You have the power to tell your story. And honestly, nobody else out there does. You have a huge community of people. I mean, look at all the, there's 63 people in here right now, and you all know each other. You're your community. You make introductions to each other, but it's up to you to be able to take that ball into the end zone. Little pun there with the Super Bowl coming up, right? But you control how you show up, and you put your effort into this. Job searches stink no matter what industry you're in. I get it, but hold on to that why. And my last key about you principle is you have so much power in being kind. What does that mean to you all? I want to hear from you.
Treating people with respect.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what else? What else does that mean to you?
Respect people's differences, their spaces. You know, don't project your own views onto people. Allow people to be themselves.
I like that, and I totally embrace that wholeheartedly. Anybody else have any idea what I'm getting at here?
Be kind to ourselves.
I do love that. You always should be kind to yourself. Always find ways to recharge. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Like people will remember how you make them feel versus
Yes.
like as much about what you say.
Yes,
So, like,
that's exactly what I was looking for. While I value and appreciate and agree with everything everybody said, how many people go into a networking event or a one-on-one coffee date or an interview, and you're so nervous that you're kind of waiting to be talked at, or you forget to say like hello, right? You have so much power to be kind when you show up in those areas. Like if you show up in a Zoom room on an interview, why not start with, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today, and show your passion in your heart. My boss at Alchemy, he once came to me and asked, what industry did people transition from into tech that would most quickly get a job? And I sat back and I thought for a few seconds, And my response honestly was, it's not about the job. It's about the people who are like naturally curious and talk to people and put themselves out there. They tend to be the people who get picked up a little bit more quickly. And with that being said, a gentleman that I respect was listening to me talk about this presentation, and he said this, and people will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but people will never, ever forget how you made them feel. Right? And I know it's really hard, and your nerves and your imposter syndrome and all those things get in the way, but it's not always the person who's the most technical that's going to get the job. Kindness goes very, very, very far. And with that said, I'm going to transition to Mark's favorite topic. So how many people love networking? Raise your hands. How many people hate networking with every ounce of their being? Oh, not that bad. So networking, it's really, really important. Oh, I didn't mention this when I first introduced myself. I meant to. I got my last 3 jobs from networking for the most part. 2 of those jobs were never even listed. And gosh, I think that the stats are 75% of jobs are gotten through networking. Something like 60% of jobs are never listed. And why talk about networking? Let's talk about building relationships and community and friends. And I know Mark's story a little bit, and he is a self-proclaimed introvert, if I remember correctly. And he really realized the power of building relationships and networking connections. And how has that worked out for you, Mark?
Great. So yeah, I gotta say, I was the last person in the world who wanted to get out and network. And I got to the point where it's actually fun to do. And a lot of it is just what you're saying there. It's like, it's not about finding that job. It's about building the relationships and the community. And getting the job often is the result of doing that. But, you know, that's not what it's about when you go into it. So.
Yeah. And, you know, you might go out there tomorrow and have like the best coffee date on the planet. And that might not lead you to a job. Maybe it will lead you to your 2nd or 3rd job, or maybe that person will refer you to another person. It's kind of about doing that kindness and putting good things out there to the world. And remember, oh my gosh, Nell, you were in this conversation with me today, and I was going to write it down and I didn't. But we were talking to a woman, and she said that, you know, being on top of somebody's mind is going to help you be remembered. And there was a word for that. Nell, do you remember what that is if you're here? I don't know. I'm calling on her. She might have left. There she is. She doesn't remember. I see her face. But there was a word for it, a term. I wish I could remember. But anyways, build community, build relationships. And for you introverts, what's one of the best things to do about this? You ask questions. You get people talking about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. And I'm going to say this in the most loving way. Geek out with them about code and tech and find out what they're doing and what they're excited about. And that's going to get you excited too, because you obviously love this because you're here right now, right? So y'all get that power of networking, right? I'm not going to belabor it because I'm sure you've heard it 3,000,001 times at this point. All right. And also, don't be vague. My friends, whether it's on your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your interview skills, if you are not doing the things to show what you bring to the table, nobody's going to know what you bring to the table. And this is sort of like some of the work comes in practicing your interview skills and putting the effort into your resume. It is really up to every single one of you individually to connect the dots on why you are a good hire and how what you did in the past makes you a good hire. You can never, ever, ever expect a person out there to assume why what you did or anything about you and to connect those dots. And I say this I'll get to this a little bit more in the presentation, just a tad bit more. And I could talk about some of this stuff for 3 years, 9 months, and 11 days. But, Nell's an interviewer with me too, so she kind of gets it as well. But if somebody asks you a question and you just say yes or no, and you don't elaborate on what it is, you might seem really nice to the interviewer, but they have no idea what you bring to the table. So give a little bit more. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to back this up with some resume examples. So not being vague on your resume. One thing that I see time and time again, and through a lot of my work with Alchemy, is people tend to just put a resume together or their LinkedIn profile, and they put a list of what's on the job description. And I see, why can I see your name? You have your hand up. Do you have a question? You want to say something?
I just had a question about when you were saying giving more beyond answering just yes or no. Would some interviewers consider that to be rambling or just talking too much?
There's a happy medium, my friend, on that, and that's where the practice comes in a little bit, right?
Okay.
And I have a bit of an example, and I'll just give it here right now. So Gregory, if I were to say, what is your biggest strength, right? You might, you don't have to tell me that, but say that you just say like, my biggest strength is collaboration. And that's all you say, right? But what if you say, my biggest strength is collaboration? And that has shown up with me with working in this 1 week sprint with a bunch of developers where I was able to bring people together and get XYZ done and establish this and make that happen. You gave some context, and you're telling me, like, if I'm an engineering manager on a team, you're like literally putting proof in the pudding about why your greatest strength is collaboration.
Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can talk for days. That's why I asked.
But, and that's why it's like if you practice with people and people start to like look at their clock or their phone or, the birds flying in the sky and you're losing the engagement, you probably are talking too long, when there's like a happy medium, and people love a good story, right? So tell a good story, and don't, and be mindful of the fact that, you can talk a lot.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Cool. Anybody else have anything they want to say to that, or any other questions right now while we are pausing?
I also talk a lot, and practice is definitely what you need. Shannon was very helpful with getting me to practice that and learn that happy medium area.
And Julie just got a job, y'all.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to resumes. So the inclination for a resume is like, I was a receptionist. I answered phones, I filed documents, I scheduled appointments, and I greeted guests. What is all of that, right? A receptionist job, those things are kind of inferred, right? And like the same thing with the teacher, like you might be able to infer a lot about a teacher, or, there's a lot of people coming into tech from the service industry right now. But what did you do that people are going to remember you for? If I were to go to Lindsay's boss at her last job and say, what was Lindsay remembered for? That's the stuff that I want on your resume and your LinkedIn profile and for you to talk about. So this is actually an example on here. You can see there's, the receptionist number 1, and then there's receptionist number 2. Let's read receptionist number 2. As editor of the weekly newsletter, I highlighted each writer's unique voice while making their syntax cleaner and adhering to style guidelines. Additionally, I strengthened operations across organization by collaborating with the team to optimize processes and documented them in an organized manual. What do you like better? What sounds better? Here, let me ask you a really good question. Doesn't number 2 have like some really good connection on how you'd provide value on a dev team? Yeah. Like maybe the engineering manager has people on their team that just hate documentation and they're looking for somebody who wants that. And this person is like pointing it out in the depth and showing what she's remembered for and bringing to the table. Does that make sense? How could you do that for yourself and take the time to really do that? All right. And the next thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you an example about is most of you have probably built an app in a team or by yourself at this point, right? A lot of what I see when people want to put this on their resume or talk about it is what the app does. Who cares what the app does, right? That doesn't tell me anything about you. I don't want to see lines and lines and lines of text about what your dumb app did. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say dumb. That's bad. Darn app did. I was going to curse and then I said dumb and it was bad. But I want to know how you use tech. I want to know how you showed up on a team. I want you to connect those dots about how you were able to use React or Redux or Python or whatever coding language it is that you do. And I'll use this example a lot. I am not a developer, right? I could go and put on my resume that I worked in React, but I don't know how to explain it like you all do. So show it. So this one is, there's a one-word line that talks very briefly about what the app does, which I think is important. It gives a little bit of context. It's a design-forward app for users that want to track and trade their favorite books in a safe, socially distanced manner. Okay, great. Now, this person goes on to say, collaborated with an all-remote team in a week-long sprint where I spearheaded the app's UI engineering, creating wireframes that planned out components, state, and functionality to solve our user problem. Designed and implemented accessible mobile-first responsive design using SCSS and customized React hooks. There's so much that they're telling me in this. This person not only can collaborate with the team, they can collaborate with the team remotely, which almost every developer is doing these days. And they're able to spearhead the UI. They're interested and they know about accessibility and mobile first responsiveness. There's just so much context in there. And this is where the time goes in to really put your assets together. And then what you do when you put that time in is you have the beginnings of your story when you get to the interview part and what you bring to the table. How many times have you walked into an interview and the first question is, tell me about yourself? How many people have nailed it and know how to get through that? And right? This is so important to set a great tone and get the interviewer or the interviewer salivating for more. Rebecca, did you have a question, my friend?
No, I was just raising my hand about,
sorry.
You had to tell me about yourself question, just in a different field, but I did.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what field we come from. I know that I have probably fallen flat on my face and rambled on and probably talked about the wedgie I got in high school and problems I had in college and all that other stuff. But you see what I'm going at. You want to know about the job and then you know about what you bring to the table and you're able to connect all these dots. And then putting this work in, you know what you contributed to your projects and you start to connect the dots and become memorable and show your value, right? And again, if anybody has any questions or anything that they want to say, please let me know. And I'm going to go back to that word of being vague. When you're interviewing, and this is where I was talking about, Gregory, is being able to elaborate on responses. And I kind of gave that example already with show me your biggest strength and how you can put context to it and be mindful of rambling and giving, but you want to put proof in the pudding. You want to be able to show your passion for the job and your love of tech, and people are going to connect with that and they're going to get excited because you show that. And I might be getting ahead of myself by saying this, and I think that I am, but people want to know why you want to work for your company. And now that I'm a recruiter on the other end, I kid you not, we've asked people why people want to come and work at Allocations. I've literally been told I just was applying to anywhere that suited my skills, and I really don't have any idea what you're, literally almost verbatim have been told this. I want to know like why you align with our values, why you're excited about what we're doing, and bring that to the interview. I don't care what interview it is. And yeah, that kind of stuff is going to go a long way. And then I want to talk just briefly about making yourself stand out. I hit on this a little bit before, but anything you can do to, in addition to being kind and showing your passion and stuff, how can you make yourself stand out in all these things? Branding all of your assets is a great thing. I've seen so many people put together a resume that maybe has some sort of design, minimal, it doesn't have to be crazy, aspect that bleeds over into a portfolio site. And then it's also in their GitHub site. And especially if you're looking to be in like a designy front end role, it really goes a long way. Building a beautiful portfolio site, I have a handful of people who have gotten noticed because they've put it on their LinkedIn site and people have been curious about that. If you've all gone to the same boot camp, a lot of you in the same cohorts may have worked on the same projects. And so a recruiter might get applications from a number of you, and they're going to see the same project come up over and over again. Can you build your own project and show like what you're capable and stand out on your own? And also, if somebody asks you to come to an interview and they say, hey, walk me through a project, tell me about something you've coded. If you coded your own thing, that thing from nuts to bolts, and you can talk about it completely by yourself. And it shows that you're able to do something outside of what the curriculum was and the things that were expected of you when you learn that thing. I put in here, learn code, proof in the pudding. Learn code, proof in the pudding. I'm telling you, if I see on any of your resumes or LinkedIn that you love to learn or you're detail oriented, I don't want to see any grammar problems on your resume. And if with the like, I pay attention to details, or if you love to learn, you can show that in your GitHub profile by, learning, trying to do one project in different languages or continuing to learn new languages. But these are all things that back up what you're saying and help you stand out and put that proof in the pudding. And then like highlight what's interesting about you. The same gentleman who was talking to me about the Maya Angelou quote. He was a Jeopardy contestant. He was on Jeopardy. So he'll bring that up in every single interview. Want to tell me about yourself, or maybe in your bio of your resume. People are going to be interested. Aren't all of you going to want to ask questions about that to a person who was on Jeopardy about their experience and remember that? And, there was a woman who went through alchemy who was a professional pool player. And I recommended she kept that as a fun little tidbit on her bio, on her resume. And she said, are you sure, Shannon? And she kept it on there. And a month or two later, she came back to me and she said, Shan, I just got an interview and they wanted to talk to me all about why a professional pool player. So like those things will tastefully done will go far and make you memorable. Think about how you can show up and do that. And even in an interview or something like that, maybe it's an interesting background, or it's like some fun brooch you wear, or there's a gentleman who went through alchemy who has a bird, and I've done a mock interview with him, and he's been like stone cold straight faced with a bird picking at all his buttons and not move, but people are going to remember that bird, right? What can you do to stand out? And tailor to the position. There is a woman at Alchemy who was really good about tracking her progress on all the jobs that she applied to. And she got 70 to 80% response rate because she spent 2 to 3 hours on every single resume she submitted. I have heard from some other people outside of Alchemy and code schools that people have been told to apply to 200 jobs a week. That makes my brain hurt even thinking about it. choose a good number and do it well and put the effort into it. Speak in that company's language, know what they're looking for, massage your resume based on what they're able to do, and spend the time and do it well. Nell and I, as recruiters at Allocations, we built in questions to see like why people want to be at Allocations, and the people who actually put thoughtful responses about some of that stuff, we're more likely to interview them than the people who just, I don't know, babble on about something that's irrelevant, which happens quite a bit. Gregory, my friend, what do you got?
Using tailoring your position with the resume. Is that not what the cover letter is for, or do we include it in the cover letter and also the resume?
Both. I like the cover letter. I definitely want you to write something that is, catered to the vibe that's going on in that company. And, people have different experiences that they might be able to bring to a table to elaborate on in a cover letter. And there's different must-haves and nice-to-haves that you might be able to speak to on a cover letter. But then like on the resume part, if there's, tech that they have, maybe there's something you could tweak to highlight in their language, what you've done in their language, and, kind of massage things that way. Change the title to what that job is looking for as well. And, while I'm talking about this, I've heard one of interview application killers is if you're applying for a front end role and you go in and you say like, I'm a front end engineer, but I love the back end and I could do this, that, and the other thing. I don't care if you love the back end, you're applying for a front end role, and somebody might be questioning, why are you applying to this front end role if you're all loving the back end and stuff? So if you have like a general resume, can it cater one way or another? Or have a couple resumes in different buckets? You catch what I'm throwing down?
Excuse me, Shannon, somebody in chat is using my name and has been following me in Zoom classes, claiming stuff, trying to get me kicked. Can you kick that person in chat using my name, David?
I don't have the power to do that, my friend.
Mike and I will take care of that.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
And I'm sorry you're having that experience.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
You can continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I'm glad that you said something. Does that help, Gregory?
Yes, that definitely helps. That gives clarity to what I was saying, and also what I was thinking that I didn't say. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Of course. Good. And then I'm almost to the end of this right now, but elevate yourself, my friends. You are amazing and rad. And I can't see your name either, but what, you have your hand raised as well? The woman next to Gregory. Anna.
Yes, hi. Yeah, this is Anna. I just had a question about, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you too.
Oh, you're good.
I had a question about addressing like the cover letter too. I think that just times and times again, that just comes up, and I've heard to look for a specific person within the company to address the letter to, but it seems very time consuming and guessing as a guessing game for me too. So
yeah, you mean addressing who the cover letter goes to?
Yeah.
Yeah. The more that you could try to figure out who the hiring manager is and is going to look at the resume, try to put that on there, but it's oftentimes really hard to find. So, address it to the team, or like, I think it's, Nell's going to know what I'm getting at, but there's an organization, README, they have a very fun vibe on their hiring page. And they talk about like this owl, like they have like a mascot owl in there. And so like putting something like, hi team README, and the in Owly or whatever his name is, like you're speaking their crazy, and you're getting their vibe, and you're throwing it down, and they're showing that you're.
Bom dia, meu povo. É mais sábado, mais dia que se inicia. Ensolarado, sol este que nos abrilhanta, que nos enche de esperança, né? Esperança de tenhamos dias melhores, que possamos ser seres melhores, que possamos cuidar, amar, respeitar as pessoas, né? viver minha vida com respeitando as diferenças, né? Viver maravilhoso, Deus nos proporciona
The
esta
host should be able
natureza.
to mute him or kick him out. Yeah.
Working on
Gotta
it.
love those things. I've been Zoom bombed very, very badly before. I'm okay with that. That's not as bad as the first time I was. Yeah, anyways, does that answer your question, Anna?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to like make sure it's not really like highest importance to actually try to guess, you know, the person's the recruiter's.
Yeah, if
like
you can,
name or
it's
something.
fantastic, but you don't have to.
Perfect, thank you.
Elevating yourself. So, and this is mostly particular, no, it's to the cover letters and things that you put out there as well. But I get it. You have imposter syndrome. You also are new developers, you're junior developers, you just went to boot camp. If you go into an interview and you keep saying new, junior, school, that's what people are going to continue to hear, right? But you're all software developers, you're software engineers.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God, dude!
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Anyways, don't distract it from what you can and are able to do because you keep juniorizing yourself. People are gonna, if you're in an interview, people are gonna know you just came from a code school, you're transitioning careers, you're new, but being able to elevate yourself and talk about what you can do isn't going to distract and keep reminding people about the fact that you're junior. If you're in the interview, they already have confidence that you can do the job. You just have to like make that happen now. Does that make sense? And instead of saying, I can't, maybe say, you know, I'm not sure about that, but I'm interested in learning more, or so on and so forth. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's one of the most powerful things I heard from somebody when I was looking for a job was somebody in my network said she was working on side projects, you know, so that she'd have her skills up to date and everything. And she said, I just kept talking about things like, I'm a software developer. I'm not a wannabe software developer. You know, I'm not a junior. I'm a software developer. The fact that I'm not getting paid for it right now is irrelevant.
Yep.
So as long as you're writing code, you're doing stuff, you're working on projects, you're developing software. So you should tell yourself that.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, my friends. And, you know, do everything well. Your grammar, the look, mistakes, it can honestly make or break you. I've known a few people who have lost interview opportunities because their email address was wrong. I've heard people being denied interviews because they had a whole bunch of 404 errors on their resume and things weren't linked well. I've literally been in the metro in New York City being asked for somebody's phone number because she had a phone screen and took her phone number off of her resume and the person didn't have it when the interview time came up. So check those things, you know, have somebody else look at those things. It can literally be the thing that excludes you by some of those small little things that you do. And in closing, I just want you to really, really own that what you put into your job search is what you get out of it. I know it's hard to put yourself out there. I know it's vulnerable and it's scary and it can be intimidating at times, but don't forget how amazing you all are and that you can do this. I've worked with people at Alchemy who have never gone to school a day in their life, not even kindergarten, to PhDs and everything in between. And the will and the want and the why and the passion is what's going to drive you to get to what you want to do. And, you know, everyone has their own path to their first job. We as humans have the tendency to judge ourselves amongst each other, and you know, you don't know what is going on. Life gets in the way, and whether it's life or fear or whatever the case may be, sometimes we're ready when we're ready. But just as I was saying, you are the captain of your own ship. You know, take control of that and move forward. And there's no right or wrong path. It's up to you to make you happy at the end of the day. You don't have to do this for anybody else but yourself, and do what you need to get yourself to where you want to be. Does that make sense? Yeah, and that's pretty much what I have for you tonight. And I'm going to stop the share, and I'll share this presentation with you all if I can. My contact information is right here, and I really encourage you all to connect with me on LinkedIn at the very least if you want. But I want to know, like, what your best takeaways from this. What did you learn? Like, was this good? Was it worth coming spending your time with me for this last hour? Best takeaways. Let me hear from y'all.
I thought it was
I
really
realized that I've definitely been downplaying myself with the junior and the new dev and all that kind of stuff.
Good. I hope that was helpful for you. You're an engineer, you're a software developer. Own it, because it's true. How about anybody else? Some other takeaways from you?
I like that you told us to show up authentically, because I did kind of have this perception that there was something that a software developer should look like, but it's all of us. So I thought that was cool.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Anybody else want to say anything or have any questions for that matter?
My takeaway was the resume and cover letter question of how you should tailor both of them, and actually spending the time to utilize your resume towards that position, because that 80% response rate is amazing. That is amazing.
It was really incredible to see, like, and she tracked it really, really well. Like the return on investment is incredible. Don't throw out the Indeeds and the LinkedIn quick applies. Do it well. And honestly, find people to connect with first if you can, and find a connection.
Right, I'm guilty of that Indeed and the Indeed quick apply with the different title resumes. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Good. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's about like transitioning from your career to software development. Does the degree matter about that? Like, to have a degree relevant to software development or not?
Are you asking me if it's important to have a university degree in software development?
Yeah.
As opposed
or
to
anything relevant is that?
How relevant is it? Or are you
No,
talking
how,
about like,
or I mean like a relevant degree to software developer. For anyone like who's transitioning from his career to software development.
so you're asking me if it's necessary to have a degree from a university in software development, as opposed to maybe having a non-traditional education through a boot camp or self-taught.
Yeah.
I don't really think that makes a difference. I'm not going to tell you that you're not going to run into roadblocks or obstacles in that. And there's some people who are maybe a little bit snooty about like, oh, you don't have a CS degree. And that's where I was getting at in the beginning of the presentation. They're the unfortunate people that can't look outside of a box. Move forward and find your people that are okay with, if you're a self-learner or a boot camp grad or whatever the case may be. Own who you are and do it well.
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it answered. Thank you.
Good. Tanner.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I've noticed a lot of applications have asked years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to round up that number to 1 year if we only have about 6 months or so.
Yeah, I think that it's fine to do that. If you can skip the question altogether in a sense as well. And, you know, that's why networking oftentimes will be key, because you like being able to have somebody submit your application or resume without having to fill in those numbers, where sometimes like the automatic tracking system will take you out of the running because of that. That's the way that I would approach it. And if somebody were to ask you, like, do you have 2 to 3 years of experience? And recruiters are more notorious for that than others. Try to respond with that with context about, I might not have 3 years of experience, but I've been able to do this work and this work and that work, and kind of using the buzzwords that the company's throwing out there. And I would love to talk to your engineers about that. And it's not always going to work that well, but it's kind of ways to try to think about how to elevate yourself and navigate those tricky situations. Because sometimes people are very one-sided. I mean, honestly, where I work right now, there's a lot of people from boot camps that don't have all those years of experience. And we're honestly trying to, we're actually not hiring right now because we're in a bit of a hiring freeze, but one of the things that we intend to do is elevate the job descriptions to keep out the years of experience type stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's super helpful. I felt like that has been a pretty big roadblock for me, but super helpful tips there. Thank you.
Kevin.
Hi, thanks for your time. I just had a question as it pertains to degrees, as you said earlier. And really, I'd love to hear from your perspective as a recruiter, whether or not my non-related degree, my bachelor's degree, is worthless, or to what extent that makes me a stronger candidate.
If you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, absolutely put that on your resume. Like sometimes my boss, who is also a software developer when I was at Alchemy, he has a philosophy degree, I believe. And you got a lot of critical thinking skills from that. And you've been able to navigate in education, whatever it is in. I think that Mike graduated with a woman who had a master's degree. It was Karen, Mike. And she literally asked me, should I put my master's degree on my resume? And I was like, absolutely. You're telling a story, and if you don't have a degree, that's fine too. People are starting to lessen those. If you don't have a university degree, that you aren't going to be hireable type of stuff, but own what you did for sure. Kevin.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to add to that one of the questions I usually ask when I do mock interviews is, tell me something about your prior background that you think will make you a better software engineer. And I mean, virtually everybody has something they're bringing to it that makes them better at being a software engineer. But people consistently undersell that. They consistently play down that background. So I've had fascinating conversations about how being a bartender makes somebody a better software engineer. And I've known bartenders that I think were probably pretty amazing at it.
I love it.
Well, yeah, I think everybody should realize that there's a lot of value in what you already bring to it, even before you did boot camp or your degree or whatever.
And I completely agree with Mark, but this is where the work comes in taking the time to develop that story for yourself. Like being asked those questions, like if you didn't practice that question and you went into an interview with Mark, wouldn't that make you a little bit nervous, and it probably catch you off guard, and you might not have the words to be able to say that, right? Kevin.
What is your best piece of advice for kind of fighting the imposter syndrome that you get, maybe from kind of getting stuck on a problem, or even just in the interview process of kind of getting interviews and, not moving forward, just in general, kind of fighting the imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Gosh, there's been so much talk about imposter syndrome, and it is for sure a real thing. I think if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be human. Find ways to refuel yourself. Find community to talk about. Other people everybody here has had the same experience. I've had similar experiences in my world. You have to find ways to keep that passion and your why and your excitement, and to refuel yourself and to keep going, especially the long game when it comes to a job search. I know it's not the best answer, but have solace and create community that you can lean on in those situations and talk about it. And I think oftentimes we tend to not be vulnerable with those feelings. And I think that sometimes being vulnerable with others and talking about it helps you connect with others, build community, and find that you're not the only one, and hopefully rebuilds and empowers you that way a little bit more. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Julie, what do you got, my friend?
Actually, specifically about the imposter syndrome, because I had a very, very bad experience with it yesterday. I started my new job already, and I was doing some code review, but the person I was reviewing is somebody that I knew personally because they went to the boot camp with me in my cohort. And they've been at that company for much longer than I have. And I felt like it was wrong of me to be telling them that they were doing something wrong and needed to fix it. And it was bugging me all day. And so I just stopped and I started like kind of talking it out loud to myself. And I was talking about it with my husband, and I went in and messaged a couple of my friends at Alchemy that I'm working with as a TA there, and just explained to them like what I was feeling and how I felt like I was out of place. And just the act of like being real and honest about those feelings that I was having was enough to like calm my senses and like clear my head enough for me to recognize that it was not valid, those feelings. And I was able to like pinpoint and remember all the positive things that I have done and contributed, and the challenging things that I've overcome to get here to make myself worthy of being in this position. So just like kind of what Shannon was saying is just kind of be vulnerable and be honest about that with yourself. That helps.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Yeah.
Justice, what do you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I was hoping you could put your contact information back up. I didn't quite catch it in time.
Yeah, I just put my LinkedIn address in the feed, and yeah, and I'll actually put my email address as well. And I can't share my slides on this, but maybe if I sent them to Andrew or Michael, they could send it to the group of people who attended. Yeah, and
we can add this onto the meetup invite so that
okay,
people can have
cool.
it.
Thank you. I really
If you're
appreciate
okay with
it.
that, Shannon.
Thank you. What do you got, Julie? Do you still have a question? Does anybody else have any questions, best takeaways, or anything else they want to say before we close this up?
I just want to say thank you. This is great. I love the energy you bring to this and just all the kind of experience. And it seems like people really responded to the advice you're giving. And I agree with everything that you kind of put out there tonight. It's as a hiring manager, it's like, I know I interview a lot of people. It's like that first job is the hardest one to get. The second one's still sometimes not that easy. Once you have a couple of jobs and a couple of years experience, you're fending off recruiters. So just hang in there. You will get there. You'll all make it. I know, just because you're trying so hard. So listen to what Shannon said and take her advice to heart.
I do have a question, Shannon.
Yes.
So I'm presently a student in a boot camp, and I would like to know, at what point of the journey do you start putting yourself out there?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And, you know, I would address this a lot in Alchemy, and it's a little bit harder for me to answer this, not knowing the rhythm of what your boot camp puts out there. But Alchemy is about a 6-month-long program, and there's a midpoint. There's a point where they have about 2 months left of the program before they finish. And so everybody's different when it comes to this question. So when I see people go through a coding boot camp, some people are in it all day long and doing the thing that their curriculum says that they have to do. And then they're working a lot overnight and they're trying to grasp the concepts because it's moving at light speed and it's really difficult. And some people are like, I got this, and they're working above the code and they're doing side projects and so on and so forth. And so, and then like, I want you to like think about the fact that I don't know how aggressive your boot camp is, but if you apply, say you have 3 or 4 months left right now, if you apply right now, there's a possibility that you're going to get an interview. And so you might not have all the skills you need to answer the technical questions or pass a code challenge just yet. And you're going to be stressing yourself out, and you're going to be preparing for the interview, potentially missing your curriculum, code, lecture, whatever the case may be. And then you don't get the job. You probably put a little bit more into your imposter syndrome. And also, like, are you applying for a job that's in the same language? Because then that puts on another layer of, oh my gosh, I have to do a tech challenge in a language that I'm not doing right now. So I kind of want you to like leverage where that's at, in addition to how much do you want to work at that company? So like, if it's like I want this company so bad job, I want you to be a little bit more buttoned up and maybe closer to the end of your boot camp. If you're like 2 or 3 weeks away, you know, and that's where I like, not everybody's going to have the same path to a first job, because a company might get back to you tomorrow or this afternoon or 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now or 6 months from now. You don't know when they're going to respond to you as well. So you kind of want to get some things going in a way too. So you want to like protect your energy and be in a good spot. And I know this is a very ambivalent response, but it's because of where everybody's at in a different place and time. Does that help?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was looking for the unmute button. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I pretty much got from you measure where you are, kind of understand where you are. Don't be presumptive. Don't jump the gun, basically. Don't jump the gun and try to go ahead of yourself, because you can kind of damage your morale and your energy. So protect your energy. And if this is a company that you really want to work for, then kind of wait towards the end, because you might not have everything you need to go into that position right away. So yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. And there's something I wanted to say. Oh, yes. But please, for the love of all things, have a resume ready to go when you are finished with your code school or boot camp or whatever it is you're doing, and network, my friends. Please, please, please network.
Yes,
that's definitely what you should be doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Is it Ryan? Yeah, Ryan.
Hey, Shannon. Thanks again for having this talk. I got some good information out of it.
Good.
With your experience, I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
On my resume, is it okay to put a self-built project with active users, but like you're not really charging yet? You still have, like, you went through all the motions of building it out.
Yes.
You have as a real experience, or is it still technically like a project, you know?
This is so I'll tell you this. If somebody comes to me from Alchemy and they have just graduated or whatever the case may be, when I was working at that role, they would say, Shannon, I picked up this side project for my mother's brother, my uncle, or whatever the case may be, and I'm building this website on a side project. And I said, you put yourself as a developer right now on your LinkedIn profile and your resume. They do not have to know that it's a family friend, you're not getting paid, or whatever the case may be. It sounds like you have a
kind of SaaS.
Yeah,
like
but you have a
SaaS.
user, you have some sort of stakeholders. So I think that in your case, I would put that as like a freelance software engineer. And even if you're not getting paid, it's still work on your resume. Like, as soon as you're building things for like stakeholders and other people in an audience, I would definitely put that under the like working contract freelance software developer. It's all about the story you tell.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Joshua.
Yes, so I was wondering, so if you were to get like an interview and like, I guess like in the span of like the boot camp that you're in, is it possible to tell like the start date, oh, a month from now, 2 months from now? Or,
If you're applying for a job?
well, yeah, like if you get one, like
No, I would say, so I wouldn't necessarily do that, Joshua. I would, if like you have the, because fields are all going to be different, I would say like within 2 weeks of getting an offer letter, you know, if you can put that in there. Putting something 2 to 3 months out, you don't know how, if somebody's like looking to hire right now, they're going to see that and they're going to exclude you immediately. So I would, and then you're not sure when people are going to hear back from you oftentimes. So yes, I would put something to the nature of 2 weeks from getting an offer. Does that help?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, why can't this person start for another month or two? Like it's going to put up some spidey senses, I think. Anybody else? Questions, thoughts?
Thank you again, Shannon. This was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
It was so great to see you, and it was so great to see everyone. And yeah, so please, we're going to be posting some things on the meetup, and this will also be on the YouTube, the Collab Labs YouTube channel as well. So please check those out. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you. And thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful to see you all. Those of you I know from Alchemy, so many hugs to everybody. And yes, have a great night. And thank you for having me.
Bye.